but I have to stop now because I think I'm going to have to move in April. It looks like, so it's just like 2 dogs, a cat, 85 houseplants, and depending on her mood, Leah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But hey, whatever. But anyway, good to see you.
Oh my gosh, good to see you too, Andy.
Rosie, your dog there is priceless because our puppy won't sit still for 2 seconds.
Yeah, this is my boyfriend's parents' dog. We're watching her this week, and we watched her about, maybe 8 months ago, and she was a lot smaller, and like literally she peed everywhere. Like it was just like a pee factory last time. And so I was like, I just don't want to ever watch this dog again. But now we're watching her, and she's been incredible this time around, and will literally just sit in my lap like this all day. It's crazy.
Imitating a cat.
Yeah, seriously. Silva, did you cut your hair?
It's in progress.
Are you cutting it right now?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I'll finish after our meeting so that I'm not distracting.
It looks great though. I like it. The both sides. It's a good look for you. Okay guys, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Welcome to another round of training. Thanks for being here this morning. A couple housekeeping notes before we get started. Tomorrow is that presentation on redlining with the Indiana Historical Society. And then Thursday, we are doing an agent panel on dumpster fire transactions. So those are specifically around like transactions happening during like divorce or an estate sale or a tax sale, just transactions that are gonna be super hard. So we have Rex Fisher, Jess Martin, Emily Burford, and Steve Lunsford on that panel. So hope you can join us for that. And then there are still spots available Thursday afternoon from 4 to 6. We're going to be screening that documentary that came out from Newsweek a couple of months ago. It's about kind of racist real estate practices that they discovered in Long Island. Anyway, it's really interesting, and we're gonna just watch it and then have a discussion afterwards. That'll be in the office. It's limited to 10 people. We'll have masks on the whole time, and yeah, that whole shebang. Without further ado, I am going to pass it over to Sue Proud. Sue is with MyBoard, and she's joining us today to teach us about listings and CMAs. Sue, I already prepped you for this, but would you mind giving us kind of a brief intro on yourself, how you got here, what neighborhood you live in, anything else you want to tell us about yourself?
Oh my, okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Gosh, I'll try not to bore you to tears here. I come from the greater Chicago area. We were there almost 20 years. Prior to that, we moved all around the country. I lived in Ohio, North Carolina, Albuquerque, New Mexico, all over the place, and several places multiple times. So I come actually from a training background in the corporate environment, and then I transitioned into real estate. I owned my own professional home staging business, and I was a realtor in the Chicago area for some time. And then my husband and I looked at each other one day and said, what is life all about if we're not around the people that we love? So we decided to move to Indy to be near family, and here we are. So I was fortunate to be able to get involved with MyBoard, and then Angie, I'm sure many of you probably know Angie, she left the position, and I was lucky enough to obtain it. So I've been with MyBoard since June, and but because of my background, I do have a sense for what you all are going through and some of the issues that you confront. So hopefully as we go through training sessions today and in future ones if you attend, we try to make it very relatable to what you're experiencing. And I currently live in a rental home near Butler University, and we're just waiting for an opportunity after all this COVID stuff is over with to finally purchase a property and set down roots. So we're here. So thank you so much again for allowing me to be here. And the first thing I like to do is lay a little housekeeping as far as the way I like to go through these classes. Because we have a relatively small group, I would ask any questions that you have, just unmute yourself and ask the question. And I do take periodic breaks because I'm going to be shooting a ton of information to you. So I would ask that you not interrupt me during content, but during the Q&A sessions periodically, if you'll unmute yourself and ask your questions then. And then hopefully at the end, we can have a general Q&A about any questions that you might have about the platform. One other thing I do like to pass along, well, two actually today. Please make sure if you have bookmarked myboard.com that you have just the plain myboard.com site, the https:// myboard.com for your bookmark, because Clarity is realigning their services through Google Cloud. And so please make sure if you have an old bookmark that you have the new bookmark now, because once that alignment goes through, you're going to have some issues connecting otherwise. The other thing I want to pass along, hopefully all of you saw in the last issue of Realtor Weekly that Matrix is getting ready to have a facelift. And so many of the things I'll be going through today, functionally, you'll still be able to do. But when the facelift occurs, and it's going to happen on November 30th, you're going to see a new, more streamlined look to the Matrix platform and the types of reports that are generated. So just be aware that that's coming down the pike. Okay, let's see. What else do I have for you? I think that's about it as far as housekeeping. Let me put on my glasses here. Give me a sense for where you guys are coming from today, if you will. If you want to just type in the chat, that would be awesome, instead of everybody just talking at once. Let me know where you're coming from.
So do you want to know like how far they are in the business?
Sure. Either where you're physically located, how new you are to the real estate industry.
Amazing. All right, y'all. So
Brand new person.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Ransom Place. Okay. Best, Indy's best. All right, that's awesome. Leslie, Holy Cross. Okay. Started last June. Awesome. John Shire. Lago. Oh, they're coming in fast and furious here. Steph, Fountain Square. Andy, Devonshire. Mark, 3 years. Okay. St. Joseph. All right, awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. It gives me a sense. It looks like, okay, we have a smattering as far as new and some with a pretty good foothold in the industry. So some of this might be repetitive for those of you that have been in the industry for a while. Others of you, you're going to be hearing information probably for the first time. So that's a good thing. You're in a good place. And if you have heard this information before, I think something Rosie and I were talking about is it's interesting. The more times you might sit through particular content, even if you've heard it before, different things resonate with you each and every time because of your experience level. So I hope you find that the content today, you are able to take away some valuable information that will help you along your path. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, this is what we're going to be covering today. And can you give me a thumbs up if you're seeing my PowerPoint? All right, awesome, good. We're going to be talking about which BLC tools can be used for CMAs. The Matrix platform is not the only source for you. How to search for listing information, how to find history on a subproperty, how to find comps, and in particular, recent, close, and similar properties, how to create a CMA in Matrix, and in particular, the branding associated with that. And then lastly, we'll wrap things up talking about the market insight tools on your BLC dashboard. And they are some awesome infographics, and a couple in particular I really want to share with you as far as using with your potential listing clients. As always, the MyBoard Help Desk is your best friend, your best resource. The folks there at the help desk have years of experience, so please always reach out to them. Never hesitate. You can call them directly at 317-956-5000, or you can access them email at thehelpdesk@myboardsupport.com. Okay, let me get over here to the BLC dashboard. And by the way, if you want to pull up a separate screen and actually click through this with me, you're more than welcome to do that if you learn best by doing. I will be doing real-time access on my screen, so hopefully if you decide not to do a separate screen yourself, you'll actually be able to see what materializes when I click on a particular tile or button on the Matrix platform. As far as sources that are available to you to produce a CMA, as I mentioned, there are other options for you. In particular, HomeSnap has good access to a CMA that they can produce on that platform, and you can actually produce a CMA through the HomeSnap app on your phone if need be. So just know that that's available to you, and you can pull information from the Matrix platform through that HomeSnap app. So if you are curious about that, want to explore that, there are classes on the myboard.com tech training page. You just click on, go up here to tech training, click on the tech training options there, and there are HomeSnap classes available for you. There are also options on RPR. Love RPR CMA. It's really professionally done looking. You can customize it. It can be huge or it can be very concise. So just know that RPR offers a very nice option for you. There's also Remine. And Remine, the nice thing about Remine, it pulls from Google sources as well. So if that's more your way of liking to present information to your clients, know that Remine might be an additional option for you. The other thing I want to point out is Realist actually has a CMA on it. Now the only thing about Realist, while there is tons of data on the Realist platform, there's no branding associated with it. So it's very data centric, if you will. So if you find that you've got a client that loves data, this might be an option for you. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the Matrix platform, and you do that, of course, on your BLC dashboard by clicking on the Broker Listing Cooperative tile. And oh, I was on too long. Let me log back in. All right, so we're on the home screen, and you've gotten a call from a client, a potential client, and they want you to come give a listing presentation. And if you're new to the industry and this is the first time for you, your heart's going pity-pat and you're saying, oh my gosh, what do I do? So the first thing you need to do is pull up information, historical information on that particular property. One thing you can do is immediately go over here and search for that property by a street name. And for today, I'm going to put in my subject property is 5325 Central. And you may or may not realize that doing a quick search from your home screen is in fact a cross-property search. So regardless of the type of property that it is, it should pull up a historical reference for you. And here are the listings for that particular property that have been in the BLC previously. I can click on any of these and get a historical perspective of that particular listing. Another option for you, let's go back to the home screen. You can go to the search tab and go all the way down here to public record. And you can see that the format is very similar to most of the search screens within the Matrix platform. But typically for a location, you want to put in as little information as you can get away with. Why? Because it's pulling from a huge database. You might want to use an owner's last name. If they have a common last name, you might want to include their first name as well. If that particular owner might have multiple parcels that are associated with their listing. But if you're dealing with just one address, you can put in the address here. You see down here in the bottom left, it shows that I have, in fact, a match, one match. I'm going to click on the results. And this is, in fact, the property for my potential client. This is the parcel ID, which I'm going to go ahead and click on. And wow, seeing how slow my computer is doing, just so I say the words, my last 3 Zoom classes, Zoom just spaced out and went in that perpetual wheel of death for about a minute or so. So if that happens during our presentation today, please hang on and know that I'll be trying to reconnect in the background, okay? But anyway, so I clicked on that link, pulling up from the public records, and this is what I get. And those of you that are very familiar with the Matrix platform are seeing something very familiar with this format. This is the 360 view of that particular listing, of that particular property. And the 360 view gives us, in fact, a 360 view of that listing as far as tax information, as far as photos, historical information, the parcel map, and the flood map. So let's go through these very quickly. This is the last listing on that property. Gives us what it was sold for, the basics, the bedrooms, and so on, the agent remarks, the property description, everything that you normally see in a listing. The photos. This is my opportunity to get a real up close and personal look at the possible condition of the property the last time it was listed. The history of the property. Come on, kick in, there we go. This will show you all the previous listings within the BLC. Then from public records, I have a history of the sale information. And then lastly, I have the mortgage information for that particular property. The amount of the mortgage, what type, and the term of that particular mortgage. So really good information for you to be able to take in to discuss with your potential listing client. But let's go back to the last listing tab. And you'll see down here in the button bar under the Actions tab, I have the opportunity to print this particular listing. So when I click on this, this allows me to have this 360 view and all the particular tabs that I just looked at within that 360 view. And then I'm going to click on Preview. And I want to show you what happens when that occurs. When I click on Preview, then it opens up a separate tab in Matrix. And the reason I do this is it allows me to go back and forth between the Matrix platform, which I have right here, and this tab as I'm able to pull up comp information on this particular property. And you'll see as that separate tab was pulled up, I once again have the tax information. Here's that last listing information. Here are the photos and so on. And I'm not going to go all through all these again, but again, every tab that I indicated that I wanted to see for that preview is all itemized right here, one right after the other in this separate tab on the platform. But for my comps, I'm going to leave this listing page open for myself because this is what's going to give me some valuable information as I go back and forth. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and copy, copy that particular listing number. Now, let me move my share bar there. Now I'm going to go back to my Matrix platform. And now is my opportunity to pull up similar properties that I want to use as comparisons to my subject property. Now, one thing I normally suggest in the intro class and in the buyer class is I like to separate, if you will, the types of templates that I use for a particular purpose within the Matrix platform. And when I'm doing comps, I like to use the custom template. So let's click on the custom template. And why do I suggest that? Because if you separate the certain templates for certain usages, that allows you to set up a default for each and every time you use that template within the Matrix platform. So if I'm constantly using the custom template for my comps, then I can go in and specify information that I use time and time again every time I'm going to pull up comps for a listing appointment. In case in point, this status column, this is information that stays pretty constant, so I'm going to indicate that and then set that as a default, and I'll show you how I do that in just a minute. But let's look at this status column. Obviously, if I want to pull up comparable properties, I'm going to be looking at active properties. And these are properties that are currently on the market. If a buyer is going to be working with an agent, these are ones that most likely would be scheduled as showings at the same time that they would be seeing my property. So these are important for me to take a look at just as a comparative for how my particular listing stacks up to listings that are active on the market. Pending listings, these are great talking points for you with potential listing clients. Hey, this is what is actually selling in the market right now. How does your property compare with these pending properties? And this is a good opportunity for you to talk about pricing as well. Sold properties. These are probably the most important properties for comparative analysis as far as pricing is concerned. So you want to pull in at least 6 to 10 sold properties. I wouldn't normally go over 10, but to base your discussion points with your clients. Expired properties, and this is more in line with when we have a balanced market. Right now we're very heavily in a seller market because there's such high buyer demand and low inventory. Expireds are not so much a talking point for you, but again, in a more balanced market, they are. And why are they? Because these are the listings that sat and sat and sat on the market, either because they weren't in great condition, they weren't prepped for the market properly, or the pricing was not in the best position for the marketplace. Lastly, the temp off market. I like to include these simply because they are the potential properties that are going to be our competitors in the marketplace. So these are the five, I should say, that I like to include for a potential listing appointment. You'll see here that for solds, I normally, in a more balanced market and close to the type of market we're dealing with now, I put 180 days. For those of you that have had experience in the market, what are you using now as far as a time frame for solds? Can you type in the chat or unmute yourself, either way? Okay. No suggestions? All right, that's okay. Well, my suggestion, if you are new in the market, you might want to speak with some more seasoned agents, your managing broker, just to give you a better feel. I find that the 180 works pretty well for me, but again, and another thing, just so I mention it, if you are fortunate and you do get this listing as your new client, you might want to have resources lined up for you as far as knowing what appraisers use for their appraisal when they go in after an offer has been put in on a property, and you are the listing agent and you're submitting your particular pricing information to the appraiser. Why? Because if your appraiser is using 180 days for comparative properties to base their appraisal on, and you used 365 days, kind of throws your package that you're giving to your appraiser a little bit out the window. So something, you know, to put on your to-do list if you're new in the industry is making sure that you are in alignment with what appraisers are using to come in and appraise the properties on the back end of your particular deals. Okay, normally I would be dealing with a single family property, so I'm going to indicate that, and properties for sale. Once I have this first column the way that I like it, this is where I want to set up my default. So I go over here to this gray cog, I click on this, and then I am able to click on this top link to set this as my default criteria any and every time I go into this custom search template. Now that being said, this template, you can set your default criteria as many times as you want within any particular sitting that you're on the Matrix platform. So don't think once you set that, it has to stay that way forever and ever or for a month or however. You can set this however you like it for as much as you want as far as what you indicate in your status column. But this is what I like to use as my baseline. Now I'm ready to go into the location column. Now, I should step back a moment and say, when you're pulling together comps, you're trying to accomplish three things in your comps. You're trying to make sure that they are as recent as possible, they are as close as possible to your subject property, and they are as similar as possible. As recent, as close, and as similar as possible. And what you can kind of think about in regard to those three categories are the three columns within your template. The status column gets you as recent as possible. The location column gets you as close as possible. And the property characteristics get you as similar as possible. Okay? Now, I've set this first column as recent as possible. Now I'm going to do as close as possible. For my subject property, I'm going to put in 1 mile. Now again, this might be where you would want to make sure that your appraisers, when they're pulling in comps, are they using 1 mile from the property? Are they using a half a mile from the property? What is their location proximity as far as pulling comps? Very important as far as pulling in similar properties. 5325 Central was my location. If you have taken previous classes or you're familiar with Matrix, you know that simply typing it in to this field is not good enough. You actually need to click on the prompt within Matrix in order for it to lock in as far as search criteria. So I'm going to click on that. I know that it has been locked in when I get this red indicator up here. Okay, one other thing I want to pass along. If you are searching or putting criteria in here, not based on an address, but you're including area, you never ever want to pair a map search with the area search. And I say that because if you do those two together, then it will only pull up the areas that they have in common. Okay? It will only pull up the overlap between those two. So typically for a listing client, you're not including the area. You have an address and you're just going with that, but I just wanted to make mention of that just for today's discussion. Okay, so I have the location. I have confirmation that it is in fact locked in. I can go to the map search, and this shows all the properties, right? So obviously, these are way too many for me to even consider for criteria yet. But just knowing that I have this proximity around my center, it has in fact locked in. But let's go back to our criteria page. Now I want to hop over to the property characteristics where we can make our comps as similar as possible to the subject property. Normally, I would want to put in some sort of range. And for today, say 350 to 400. Oh, I'm sorry. Having a brain fade here. For a comp, I do not want to put in a price because I am trying to establish a recommended price. So for a comp, we don't want to have a price. The only time you would want to possibly consider a price in a comp is if you're dealing with an area that has, say for instance, a high degree of rehab where you have very extremes within pricing as far as those that have been rehabbed and those that have not. And if you do, you would not want to include a list price. You would want to put pricing for rehabbed properties in the current price, okay? But generally speaking, you want to skip the pricing characteristics. On bedrooms, in a normal search, like when you're searching for buyers, you want to have a bedroom count and then add that wildcard character of a plus or minus to indicate more or less properties. When you're pulling information for comps, you want to pull the ones that are most similar, so you would want to have the exact bedroom count as was shown in your listing information here. Okay, so I have a bedroom count of 3. I want to make sure that I'm pulling up only those listings that have 3 bedrooms. For my square footage, let me go back, and here's where I'm able to toggle back and forth very easily between that preview that I pulled up and the matrix platform. I can in fact confirm that I'm looking at total square footage, main and upper, of over 1,600 square feet. I'm going to go back here. I'd put in 16 to 1650 to start out. Now I'm noticing down here for my match count, I only have 7 matches. Ultimately, for a first pass through, I want to make this closer to 10 to 20 to get a good amount. So I might want to open this up a little bit, bring this down to 1550. I'm at 15 match count. That's pretty good for a first time through. And now I'm going to click on results, because this is going to, and when I've hit this gray line, that's my indicator that I've pulled in enough. My match count is good enough for this first time through to see what kind of results that I get. I'm going to click on results. And now I do have, in fact, my results page. Now, going back to the map, see how that looks appreciably different than what we had previously before we narrowed that in. Now, I like to look at the map because it's an immediate indicator to me simply based on color. I see a green listing that is showing me my actives. Now, we're in a really tight market right now. Normally, I would want to have at least 3 or 4 actives to base my counsel, if you will, with my potential client. But given our current market, we're looking at 1 active listing. We have quite a few solds. That's awesome. And then we have some pendings in here as well. So all good information. So let's go back to the results. And now's our opportunity to step back and take our time and actually go through these and see what these listings look like as far as comps for our potential client that we have. And we would just go through them one by one and see what we think about this property and how it compares to our new potential client. And I'm not going to take the time to go through this now, but we'll just randomly go through here and pick some. We'll pick this one, go to the next one. Let's go ahead and skip this one. This one. And I'm not being, we'll go to the next one on that one. Next one on that one. And you can see as I'm going through, it's saying how many I have checked and how many I've gone through of the 15 that I have selected. Click that one. Okay. Okay, now I can go back to my agent single line, and now I can look at what type of properties that I've actually pulled up. I've got some pendings in here, I've got the one active, and I've got quite a few solds. As far as sold properties, I like to keep those around 6 to 10, depending on the type of market that we're dealing with. So right now I have 2, 4, 5. So now I might want to go back and hone in on these a little more. I might pick this other sold. Okay, and there we have our options for us. Now you can, if you would like to, actually refine these and go in and narrow. Then I've got the exact listings that I want to deal with going forward, and customize these, investigate them even more. Then I can always go back to my original results by clicking up here, and it'll take me right back to that original screen, and I can check or uncheck my listings as far as my further analysis of this information. I can go back, if I want, back to my criteria page, and then now go down to the additional fields, okay, to narrow it even more. If my property has a basement, what types of criteria am I finding in the properties that I have looked at so far as really swinging the pricing information on that particular listing in that particular area? So this is where I might want to add additional features for my properties to get it down to 6 to 10 properties that I find are really on target as far as good comps in comparison to my subject property. Okay, but I'm gonna narrow these. Okay, so now I've got these subject properties and I am ready to go. All right. Okay. Another thing I want to point out is that you have under the Actions tab, this Stats tab. This allows you to put more customizable information in if you want to narrow it even further. Whoops. Okay, it's not allowing me to go back in there. Okay, well, that's not happening. Wow, all right. I don't know why it's not allowing me, but just know that the stats, let me see if I can get back. Not allowing me to get where I want to show you. Okay, well, I'm just going to have to skip that for now. Just know that the stats does allow you to look at information that you can use as discussion points with your clients. Okay? and as far as current information regarding those that have most recently sold and their current competition as well. So you've got your listings here of information. You've got a goodly amount of different types. And now's your opportunity, if you would want, you can actually move this so that it is in a format that you can discuss easily with your client. And say I want to get all my solds together. And then that allows you to pull all this information into your CMA for your client for discussion purposes. So I have one active. Normally I'd like a few more than that, but given our current market, that's okay. We've got 3 pendings, and then we have 2, 4, 5. Normally I would like to have at least 6 sold properties, but for today's discussion purposes, we'll just go with those. All right, now I can save these if I want and come back to them anytime, save them as a file within the system, but instead, hang on a minute. Let's talk about a quick CMA. And you can go right over here in your action bar at the bottom. And this will give you a real quick and dirty format, if you will, and dirty not being a bad term, of the properties that you've selected for your client. And this is something that tons of agents use because it's not too overwhelming, if you will, as far as information within the system. But it's all listed there for you, and then it does give you a summary and a range as far as list price and good talking points that you can use with your client. Now you do have the option to also click on your regular CMA. So let's click on that. This brings you up to the CMA wizard, and you can see here that you have tabs across the top. Now, depending on how you process through this will depend on what types of offerings are presented to you as you go through the CMA process. You can associate it with a particular client. You can put a description in here and make this be whatever is best for you. Crowd. Central Avenue. Then I can go to the next tab. Now the Pages tab is really the guts, if you will, of your CMA. This allows you to make many selections within the CMA by simply clicking on these, and then you're able to select one of these and pull them over for your selected pages. Now I have a group of pages that I have here that I like to include. If you want to take a screenshot of this, you're certainly more than welcome to do that. But these I find are really good as far as an overall comprehensive view of the particular property. But you can open each of these up and pull any of these over to this side for your selected pages. So say, let's see, what do I not have on here? If I wanted to select one, I just click on it, it pulls it over. Then if I want to move this up or down within my CMA, I simply move that arrow and it will move it up or down through all those that are presented. If I want to get rid of it, if I decide I don't like it, I just click on the X. You do have custom pages that you can include, and you can upload those. And I particularly like the one for trends in the area. So I uploaded that PDF. Now, one thing I would suggest that if you do upload a PDF, that you do preview it right over here and see what that information looks like. And we'll get more into these tools in just a minute. But the reason I suggest that, and let me go back, if you add your header at the top, sometimes that does overlap some kind of critical information, so that may not be something you want to include as far as overlapping information on with your header. So just keep that in mind. So if this is something that you do want to create to make it part of your listing presentation as far as your document that you're presenting, you can upload this particular information. Okay. Once you get this the way that you like it, you can set this as a default. So I'm going to go ahead and set this. And then I have confirmation that that has been saved when I get this particular banner up here at the top. Now I'm looking at my subject property. So I have various ways to input that information from the Matrix platform. I can type in the subject property fields manually. That would be your last option that you would want to do, because that is going to be super time consuming. You can enter the cross property MLS number, okay? And you saw me copy and paste that from my previous tab. That's where I will put this in here. You do have the option to do a cross property listing in an autofill here, or you can do it from tax information. And the tax information would probably be my next option if I didn't find a current listing, but that would be a particular option, and we can go there. You can see you would have to select the county that property is in, because it's in a required field indicated by the yellow here. And then you would want to indicate the street address, or if it's a property with multiple parcels, you might want to use just the last name of the current owner. And if they have a common name, you would want to put in their first name as well. But in this particular field, you want to put in actually as little information as possible, because you don't want to be overwhelmed by possible results. But let's go back. And I copy and pasted that other VLC number before, and that's what I'm going to put in here. And then this allows me to fill that information from that previous listing. Now, that being said, it's not the best practice, not the most professional practice, to keep the current photo from the previous listing within the BLC. So I always recommend just take a few minutes, drive by the property, use your phone, take a quick shot of the property as it currently exists. It's just not the most professional look if you're using a photo from a prior listing from a previous agent, okay? So, and this is where you would upload your new photo, but for today's discussion purposes, we'll just leave this one. Then you have the remarks that were in the previous listing. Again, I would customize these, make them more to your type of wording. If you haven't even been in the property yet, that's okay. You can explain that during your listing presentation and say, you know, I came up with this wording just as a possibility for our listing, but now that I'm here in my listing presentation, when I get the listing, I can really hone in and focus on the details that are features that you have improved in this property to make it really special, to make this listing sing once we have it on the BLC. Your map location, that's something that you would want to confirm. You just want to click on this, make sure that that geolocator is exactly where it needs to be on this particular property. If you go down here, you see that I have some custom fields. I added additional amenities, and these were from all the particular search fields that I have within Matrix. So this is one that I find particularly useful as being able to draw that comparative analysis between the different properties. But if there is one that you want to include, you can select one and you just click up here. That makes this box accessible. If you want to search for a particular box or a particular feature that you want to include, you can do that here. Okay? But for now, I'll go ahead and cancel that. But I do like to add additional amenities and conditions, and you'll see where these are fields that we actually have to manually input a value in the adjustments, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. And then you can save your fields as a default. Once you get this in here exactly the way you like it, you can save it as a custom default. Then when we click on the cover page, I would have uploaded my photo that I took from my drive-by, if you will, and I'll have a current photo of the property. You can customize your information if you want to make it any different than what you have in the system already. You can actually edit that here. You can override it for this particular CMA. And then the contact information that you have input in the system for your particular client would all be auto-filled here. Now we're getting to the comparables. These are the listings that you pulled up previously. And this is your time to take a look at these one more time. If you want to organize these differently, and again, if you want to hover on these and make sure that you have all the pendings together, you can do that. All the solds together. If you like to talk about active listings first and then pending and then solds, just organize these so that they're most comfortable to you as far as talking points with your potential client. Excuse me. The map, this is going to show everything that you've selected here. The subject property, which has the geolocator here, and then all your comparables. Again, they're color coded as to sold and active and pending listings. And I do want to make mention of the fact, as you're going through this CMA wizard, as you go through each and every tab, your information is being auto-saved within the system, okay? So if you do need to come back to this, you can always do that. And how do you do that? You go back up to My Matrix, to your CMAs, and then they're all listed here for you, and you can click on that and go back. Okay. All right, now we're to the lovely adjustments. So ultimately, when you're doing your CMAs, you want to do as much as possible during your search and refinement phase of this, so that you have to do as little adjusting as possible, okay? Now, all that being said, when you get to the adjustments field, as far as the values that you incorporate into these fields, that is so highly dependent upon the property's location and the other comps that you're bringing to bear as far as analysis between the properties. So my suggestion to you, if you are a new agent, is reach out to a seasoned agent, reach out to an appraiser who is very familiar in the area to know what type of values you should be using for particular characteristics in properties that you have to equate a dollar value to try and get your CMAs so that your properties are as equal as possible when you're trying to make your analysis. But you'll see here in the adjustments page, it shows your feature value up here at the top, and we'll see this in more detail here as we go through. It shows your property that you have, that you're doing the CMA for. It has your listings that you're making the analysis for. As you go through and make adjustments, then the impact of those adjustments are going to be shown down here. But you just go through here step by step and you access this going from left to right. Okay. And then this is where you're going to be entering your particular fee value for that particular item. Now, what the system does is on each of these particular fields, it shows you what your subject property has under that column as far as bedrooms, and then all the properties that you have listed as far as your comparison, how they stack up in that same category. So as far as bedrooms, I have all 3-bedroom properties, so there's really no adjustment that I need to make there. But looking at baths, I see in my subject property, I only have 1 full bath, whereas others of them have 2 full baths. So let me equate a dollar value to that. Let's say a bath is worth $15,000, just for the sake of discussion. And please, please do not use this as gospel, okay? Again, it's going to be highly dependent upon where your property is located as far as to the dollar value you equate to a particular feature. But for today's purposes, let's just say a full bath is worth $15,000. My subject property only has 1 full bath. So those properties that have 2 full baths, they're going to subtract $15,000. Why? To make it an apples to apples comparison. Now this one on Guilford Avenue is being compared as though it is a 1-bedroom property versus the 1-bath property versus the 2 baths that it currently shows. For a half bath, let's just say it's $8,000. Again, the system automatically makes those adjustments depending on the numbers equated for the comparables that you've pulled into the system. Then lastly, I just want to get to, and you would go through these and again equate information or a dollar value according to that particular item. One thing I will share with you, one of the best classes I ever took was offered by an appraiser in my particular area, and they went through step by step and showed exactly what he used as far as value for particular features in a specific area, in my neighborhood, if you will, where I was buying, where I had clients that were buying and selling properties. And this was so super enlightening. So if you have an opportunity to take a class from a local appraiser, I highly suggest that you do that, because these values are going to be very dependent on where that property is located within our given marketplace. Okay, so we're down here to additional amenities. And what might this be? Say my particular listing property has a fantastic backyard, but it doesn't have a field that's really quantifiable, okay, where I could put that in as a search criteria in my initial comps search. So I would just have to give this an assessed value as far as what I would make this as a plus factor for my subject property. Or maybe it's the opposite direction. Maybe my subject property has a horrible backyard, okay, in comparison to the other properties that I'm looking at. I might want to make this a minus for my subject property. So again, these are for things that are kind of intangible that you can't really put a search criteria to. But just for the sake of discussion, just say my subject property has this fabulously landscaped backyard. I might assess a dollar value of $5,000. Then I would have to go in and manually input, how do these other properties stack up to this value that I've given for my subject property? Same thing is true for condition. If my subject property is like it's out of a magazine and these others are not so much, then I would go through here and manually make adjustments for my listing. Okay. All the while, every single time you do that, and let's just say, make this one 3,000. Make this one minus 1,000. All the while you're inputting this, then you're getting adjustments down here as to what your recommendation would be for a low, medium, and median and average price for your subject property. Then we get to pricing. And this just pulls all this information together as you've gone through your wizard, each and every tab. This pulls all your information together that you've input within the wizard. And it gives you your count. How many listings are being pulled in for the information that you're going to be sharing with your potential client. Giving you a closed price, a comparable price, and then an adjusted comparable price. And those will be discussion points for your future client. Under suggested list price, you might want to give a range here, okay? Based on information that you have seen, based on the fact that if you are the quote unquote neighborhood expert, you can say, hey, it's my experience that in this neighborhood, this would be a reasonable range. And based on the condition of your particular property, this is the range I think we should consider for a list price that would be of market value. Some agents like to leave this totally blank based on their discussion with their potential client. It's all up to you as far as what you like to include and the way you like to discuss things with your clients. Excuse me. Under notes, this is what I typically would recommend that you put in as far as your value proposition. What do you bring to the table that other agents that they might be interviewing may not have the same value proposition? Have you sold properties in this neighborhood before? What has been your experience as far as days on market on those particular properties? What can you bring to the table that would sway them to select you as their agent? Okay. And then you have your final CMA. Now, again, for the photo, I never ever recommend that you use a photo from a previous listing. That's just not a best practice, if you will, using another agent's photo. What I would suggest is that you do a drive-by the property, take a picture with your phone. That way it will show the current season and shows that you did make a little effort for that particular property. Then you can view the CMA and take a look and see the way it looks. And there you have your final CMA with all your information listed. You have your cover sheet. And again, this is all based on your CMA wizard as far as what you've put into the system for your particular information for that property. Excuse me. You do have the option to upload customizable tools, and we'll talk about the market insights in just a minute. Here is your comparable listings, all the ones that you selected, active, pendings, and solds. And these are your discussion points with your client as you go through to give validity to your final recommendation as far as pricing information on that property. A map of the properties, of the various comparables. Then you have your pro report. And I like this pro report simply because it's not quite so overwhelming for clients versus having the full listing there. And it kind of encapsulates what their comparisons are as far as what their property will be as far as their competition on the marketplace. Don't mean to get you dizzy here. Then you have your CMA Pro report, all the active properties, the pending properties, and the sold properties. And those sold properties are really your sweet spot, excuse me, as far as establishing your pricing information. The lowest, the highest, the average price, and the square footage price, and the days on market. Okay, so lots of information here, all dependent on those pages that you put within that CMA wizard. And each and every page will show your subject property and then the other properties that you pulled in to compare. And it will show everything that is listed between those, as well as any adjustments that you made for particular features. Okay. You have your establishing market value page. A lot of your brokerages have these type of graphics, and they're really good to incorporate if you find them as helpful as far as establishing that sweet spot with your client as far as that particular listing price. And then your market statistics. As far as the market is concerned, this is the average price, this is the high, medium, and low price. And what would I suggest as your potential realtor going forward as your suggested list price, any notes that I might want to include? And then your steps to making that listing exactly the way it needs to be for the marketplace. And this is where you talk about staging and how awesome it is to get the property just perfect for any particular buyer to walk through the door and want to jump on and make an offer. Okay, so all of that is dependent on what you include in your CMA wizard. Okay. And then we get to our last page. You're able to view the CMA. You can email it to your client. It gives you a summary of how many listings you have for your CMA. If you have 3 listings that are pending, 5 that are sold, and 1 that is active. If you want to adjust that, you can go back in and do that so that you have a little more of a balance between the different categories. In our market, it's really hard because so many things are just jumping right off the market right now. So, but normally you would want to try and get a balance there. And with sold properties, I like to make that about a 6 to 10 count. And for actives, maybe 3 or 4. Just depends on what you feel comfortable with as far as what you like to use as discussion points. And then you're able to save this. You can save this throughout the process, or you can save it once you get to the end, and then you're able to present it to your client for your particular listing presentation. Okay, are there any questions about any of that? And let me make sure that I've covered everything that I want to here as I'm going through this. Okay. If you click here, this allows you to save your CMA. And one thing I do want to bring up is that as you go through these tabs, the system is auto-saving this, okay? So if, for instance, you get a phone call, you're pulled away for whatever reason, you can always access this under My Matrix and go to My CMAs. If you click on that, here's all the CMAs you've done, and you can pull it up. That way you don't have to re-input the information all over again. Okay. Another option you have is to go back up to your recent searches. And this is your opportunity to go back in and manipulate that information a little more so that it's honed in exactly the way you want it to be. Okay, now's a good stopping point for me. Does anyone have any questions at all so far?
Sue, I don't know if you saw in the chat, Silva asked if the look of the CMAs will change with the facelift.
You know, that is a really good question. I haven't been able to explore that yet. I really don't know. I'm sorry that I don't know the answer to that. And that is an excellent question. And that is something that I can follow up with you on.
Thank you.
Let me jot that down. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Let's see. So if you go under My Matrix, under your CMAs, now I did not save mine, but oh, let's see, where was that? Did not save it. Okay. Okay, obviously you would want to input your information so that you're getting your count down to around 10 to 20 listings, okay? See if I can find mine. But once I get all of my listings up, then I want to kind of get a good mix, if you will, between the sold properties, the active properties, and the pending properties. Depending on our market, would have a bearing on how many actives you're actually able to pull within. And excuse me, as far as active properties, because the market is so tight, I mean, normally in a more balanced market, you would want at least 6 to 10, depending on what your appraisers are using. And this is where, again, I would reach out to either a seasoned agent in the office or an appraiser to see what kind of mileage parameters they're having to use right now to pull comps, so that when you do present that listing package to your particular appraiser, when you have that opportunity, that you have that buyer client and you need to validate the pricing for that property, that it's comparable to what the appraiser is using. Okay, so right now I've got 5 solds, 1 active, and 3 pendings. Okay. Now you also have the opportunity, once you narrow this down for your CMA, to pull up stats on those particular properties. And you see I'm under the Actions tab, and I just click on Stats. Then this allows me, if I want to get even more granular as far as the information that I'm customizing for my particular CMA. Okay. Oh, nice. Okay, it will not process at this time, so I'll have to go back at another time. Let's see if I can pull something up for you that I wanted to show you. Not allowing me. Well, sorry, gang. Normally, I would show you that particular tabular information. Let's go to charts. No, not showing what I wanted to show you. Let's go back up here. Okay. Sorry about this. This has really put a crimp in my presentation here. Well, okay. Well, now's a good time for me to break for questions since I can't seem to pull up what I wanted to show you. Let me go back to
Sue, do you know if there is a good place for agents to find like how much that bathroom costs? Like you put in that $15,000. Like, do you know if there's a good place for them to figure out, like, how do you figure out how much a bathroom or half bathroom is worth?
That is such a good question. And excuse me, what I would say to you on that, one of the best things that I ever did as an agent was go to a webinar that was held by a local appraiser. And the values for those particular properties are so determined by the area that subject property is located in. So if you have an opportunity to go to an appraiser's webinar that is local to the area that you're particularly selling for, that will be so enlightening for you to be able to equate a dollar value, because there is no constant, okay? That dollar value, when you go to make adjustments within your CMA, is highly variable depending on the market and depending on the neighborhood. So all I can suggest, particularly if you're a new agent, is establish a relationship with an appraiser in the area that you tend to sell in, or establish a relationship with a very seasoned agent to try and help you, to try and establish a dollar value for what's a bedroom worth in this particular area, okay? That way, when you're ready to start making those adjustments, you have a pretty good handle on what that information should be within the CMA that you're submitting to your client.
That's great.
To your question?
Yeah, that's great. And agents, if you guys need a connection to an appraiser, we have a couple here that we have relationships with through the brokerage. So just keep me posted. And then Sue, my other question for you was, you mentioned a couple of tools at the very beginning that agents can use to create CMAs. It's not just this matrix. You guys have like quite a few tools that agents can use to make a CMA. Do you have a favorite one outside of matrix for agents to use?
I will say that there are some brokerage websites that offer very lovely, gorgeous CMAs for their clients. Within the actual BLC dashboard itself, I have to say that I'm a big fan of RPR's CMAs. They're really professional looking, and they're highly customizable as far as how many pages that you actually include. So they can be as small as you want them to be or as big as you want them to be. I just think RPR really is an excellent location to derive that information. Let's go. So the RPR tile is right here. Remine has a nice CMA as well. Now, HomeSnap, theirs is very user-friendly. And like I mentioned earlier, you can pull a CMA actually from your phone. You can do what they call a rapid CMA from HomeSnap. So that's a really good tool for you to use because you have a pro plan as part of your MyBOR membership. So that's another good one to use. Those are my favorite. Any that you would like to recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an active agent, so I don't use it super often, but I know so many of our agents use RPR and like love it. It's just super easy to use and really pretty. So yeah, that's the one I hear about most often.
Yeah, RPR has awesome reports, all kinds of reports, not just CMAs, but really, really nice reports. So, yeah.
I just wanted to add that if you wanted to check out HomeSnap, they do have, like, they do trainings and they have recorded webinars for learning their stuff too. That's included with our pro through MyBOR.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. Appreciate that. Okay. Gosh, I forgot.